Thing of
Also,
this is
you're
like
being
the Super
recorded.
Bowl. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, I mean, you work so hard, to make this a reality. And it is, hello, everybody. Josh Lee and Sara Bustilloz here. While everybody's getting into the webinar and getting settled in, we're just catching up, as old friends do. But we'll start here in just a minute. No, I was saying, you spend so much time, I mean, you invest so much in making these awards special, and it really comes through. You know what I mean? Like, just the quality of the judging and the quality of the awards and the event itself. Everybody getting all dressed up and then watching you run around frantically in the back, running through the presentations, is one of my personal joys. So
Well,
I
I
should say we
appreciate
appreciate you.
everyone dressing up for it and having fun with it. It's really fun every year. And I'm starting to see, I'm kind of checking the participants because we have an awesome TAMI Awards committee as well, who I meet with annually and kind of gut check things. We're going through survey data from the last conference, and they're just really good touch points. And I feel
Yeah.
like we have a good group of folks that represent everything from small cities to large cities, rural areas, more cities. So I see Brian Ligon on here. He's one of our folks. But yeah, just an awesome awards committee as well behind it.
And not to completely derail the conversation, but I do have a question for you before we start.
Yes.
So you've done the awards for, a couple of years now. Is there anything that's surprising to you that you didn't anticipate going into this, like
Into
being
this
the award
year
chair,
or into being VP of awards?
being VP of awards?
No, I mean, I just think I took it over from Molly Fox.
Hmm.
Molly took it over from Dorothy, and we have changed how we're doing things so much. So when I started my career, I was with City of Midland in West Texas, one man shop, one woman shop.
One
And
person
I
shop.
just
Yep.
remember Greg from Richardson was in charge of the awards, and you had to like mail in a VHS tape or a DVD, right? And Greg would have to sift through these boxes of stuff, and then mail it back out to judges. So Dorothy
That is
helped.
bonkers.
It's crazy. So it was as recently as when Dorothy was our VP of awards, it was a different position title then, where we brought it online, and then Molly brought on like the small shop and all of these things. So it's just amazing how much it's changed since I've joined the membership. But um,
For those young people in the audience, a VHS is how we used to watch videos before YouTube was a thing. You actually had to physically change them. So thanks for making me feel old, Sarah. That's great. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Looks like our attendance settled in. So I'm Josh Lee. I'm the Vice President of Education and Development. I run the webinar series for TAMIO. And this month we have a very special guest, one of my favorite webinars of the entire year. We have Miss Sara Bustilloz from the city of Round Rock. She's directing a director of, is it marketing and communications? Is that your technical title?
Communications and marketing. Yep.
Communications and marketing. She's also our vice president for awards for Tamio. And this webinar is extra special because we're about to kick off award entries for this year, and she's going to walk you through all the ins and outs and details. I do want to offer one quick plug. There's a lot of work that goes into making this program special, and making it as efficient as possible. For those who haven't entered in Tammy's award, this is a great time to pay attention to this, but also be prepared to invest time to do your award submissions thoughtfully and thoroughly, and absolutely reach out to a board member or to a trusted colleague if you have questions or concerns. And then lastly, one of the things that makes this all a possibility is a partnership that we have with CAPIO, the California Association of Public Information Officers. They judge our awards, we judge their awards. And so there's a call right now, and I'm going to drop a link in the comments that you can go sign up to volunteer to be a judge for the CAPIO Awards. That symbiotic relationship helps us, both organizations, be professional and successful in terms of how we do our awards ceremony. So please take the time to do that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah, and we'll follow up with questions at the end of this.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. So I'm going to get right into the meat of the information. I don't gatekeep, by the way, so feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions about the process. I want everyone to be as successful as they can be, so that it's your work shining, for our judges to be taking a look at. So eligibility entries must be produced on or after January 1st, 2023. I get this question a lot, what if, I did something in, why don't we do January 1st, 2024? Well, if the work was actually created in 2023, you may not have seen your results, and have those, measurable outcomes to provide judges until, say, 2024. So that's the reason we go back 2 years, is it not only gives you time to put out the entry, but to see, the impacts that that work had. So if you, say, put out, a really important campaign last month, that you're thinking about submitting, ask yourself, have I seen all of the outcomes that I expect to see as a result of this work? If you haven't, I would suggest maybe holding that one until next year, especially if you have, maybe like a stronger entry that you can put in that category. The submission period, we are aiming to get this system open on Monday. So February 10th, and then we will close it Sunday, March 16th at 11:59 p.m. This has actually worked really well for us recently, to do this in the last few years. I know a Sunday night is a little bit weird. However, everyone's done such a good job of pretty much getting their stuff in Friday before they leave for the weekend. But if you're scrambly like me, you probably want those last few days of the weekend to kind of look over stuff. And then, depending on if you had, if you have spring break the coming week or the week before, we're trying to give you a nice, broad submission period to get your stuff in. So that hopefully a 1 week vacation isn't, totally setting you off. But if you get back Sunday in the morning, you can still submit your stuff. If paying by check, checks must be received no later than Monday, March 7th. So this is very few people, but if you do pay by check, if that's required in your city, if you don't have a credit card that you can pay with, make sure you submit your entries early so that you can get those checks in. We will notify finalists the week of May 5th. That gives us plenty of time to get with our Capio judges and get everything judged. Today, of course, is the webinar. The entry fee, has not changed. So it's $85 per entry for members, and then $105 per entry for non-members. Most of our folks are members. If you're not a member and you're thinking about submitting a lot of awards, now's a great time to become a member. And then the portal website is there for your information. We have not opened this up. It's not fully updated. Our elves are working very hard to get that ready for Monday. And by elves, I mean me. How to submit. The first step is selecting the best category. So if you go on the website, texastamio.org, right now we have the 2024 categories up. There are going to be some changes for 2025 that we will discuss in this webinar. After this webinar, I will be going in and making those changes to the website. So that should be done by Friday, and then you have that to take a look at. Generally, the categories aren't changing too much, but take a look at what category is best for your best work that you did these last 2 years. You can also go to texastamio.org. Under awards, we have a link to past award winners, and it links to our submission platform where you can actually go in and see exactly what was submitted by winners of last year, 2023. I believe it goes back, it definitely has 2022, maybe even back to 2021. So you can go in and see what did their attachments look like, what did their write-ups look like, and take notes from that. If your entry does fit into multiple categories, I would suggest evaluating the criteria carefully, and that's available if you go to the categories page. There is a hyperlink at the top to our judging criteria summary, and that will allow you to take a look at like publications, for instance. What are the judges going to be specifically looking at for a publication versus, say, a social media post, that sort of thing. So if you haven't already, make sure you're gathering supporting materials. There are some folks that do a really fantastic job of this throughout the year. And then there's other scramblers like myself who, realize, oh gosh, I got to go in and find all of my supporting materials. Be paying special attention to your goals and objectives and your outcomes. So some of those supporting documents can look like your analytics reports, any screenshots. My team, when we're entering for social media, we love to go in and actually screenshot some of the comments back and forth, if they're positive, or if you can show how you were engaging folks on the matter. Any photos, if it's an event in person, showing just how popular it was, including those photos. Any testimonials from internal customers are great. I love including, like, if I got an email from a council member or member of the community who said, I really appreciated how you did that. That's a cool thing, and really stands out in judges' minds. Here's that judging criteria that I was mentioning. So for all of our categories, there are 3 areas that are the same criteria across all of them. So goals and objectives. Did you clearly state what your goals and objectives were and any target audiences? Results and outcomes. Did you meet those goals and objectives? So again, making sure you're not just saying, yep, we met them, but not only did we meet them, we exceeded them, including measurements, hard facts and numbers is always really helpful. And this is important because for a small shop or a small city, of course, you're going to have different results and outcomes than maybe a shop with different resources. So it's important to show what it means specifically for your community, and your shop, that you were able to accomplish what you were. So if it was a pure numbers game, then it would be a totally different award program. And it's always been important to us that you're able to tell your story as to why something was especially successful for your community. And then overall impression, this will be a change that I'm noting later in the presentation. In the past, this has been a maximum 5 points. I'm actually going to boost this to 10 points this year, so that judges can have a little bit more variation in the number that they're giving folks for overall impression. We'll talk more about why that is. But again, the creativity, effectiveness, value to the organization. So work that's just really impressive and wows you, right? They'll have 10 points to give for that. And then in addition, each judge will rate an entry based on its production quality. And those are those category specific criteria. So there are 3 or 4 questions that the judge has to ask themselves. If it's a publication, was it written clearly? How was the grammar? How was the spelling? That sort of thing. Some tips and tricks. Again, visit those past winners and see exactly what they turned in to win. Consolidating and grouping your attachments. I think a lot of us have Canva now. So it makes it pretty easy to, make a Canva slide deck, incorporate hyperlinks. If you're going to do that, make sure they work. So, different things where you can tell a story a little bit more with your attachments, and walk those judges through. If you include too many attachments, it can get really daunting for a judge that has up to 15 submissions that they're judging. So just try to be concise with it. I know a lot of folks, I could tell last year that a lot of folks found ChatGPT. Just be sure if you're using tools like that it's not adding a lot of word salad that takes away from the actual metrics and data that you have. And then again, of course, aligning your goals with your analytics really helps demonstrate the impact of the submissions for you specifically. And then as you're in the system, I beg of you, if you are planning on paying with a credit card, once you're done and you've submitted all of your entries, you are going to have the option to select your payment method. Invoice means pay by check. You will be given an invoice you can print out and mail in with your check. If you want to pay with credit card, please select PayPal. Even if you don't have a PayPal account, even if you're not using PayPal to actually pay it, that's just the vehicle that we use to accept your credit card payments. If you do not choose PayPal and you want to pay with credit card and you selected invoice, I actually have to go into the system and unlock your submission for you to re-enter. It saves all of your work, so don't go like copying your submissions and freaking out. Just send me an email or give me a call, and I will be sure to unlock those back to you so that you can then reselect PayPal and pay by credit card. But that will save you a lot of fear and stress at the end. So now I want to go a little bit into the program history, some of the reasons behind the decisions that we're making over these last few years. I am so happy when I look at how our program has grown over the last 4 years. I can say that is not a typo. In 2021 and 2022, we had the same exact amount of entries, 435, which was already a huge increase over the times that Josh and I were talking about when we were having to compile everything physically and mail it in. Being able to, jump online and make those submissions and use digital files really saw an increase there. But then we started making some changes heading into 2023 to our categories, to some of the ways that we were actually administering and talking about the awards. Again, I don't like to gatekeep. I want to see lots of entries because it starts increasing the amount of cities that win awards. We've kept this really solid ratio over the years. So TAMI Awards is our first place, Awards of Excellence is our second place, and Awards of Honor is our third place. So in 2023, we jumped up to 544 entries and we saw 13 new cities. I only went back to about 2019. 13 new cities were finalists and went home with hardware. And then in 2024, we had an amazing 688 entries submitted. And that resulted in 34 new cities that were finalists and went home with hardware. So very exciting to see new cities taking home trophies. And that's really what it's all about, is seeing, who are the up and comers, who's creating really great work out there that maybe in your circles of talking you aren't noticing, but when they submit the work they're doing, it's extremely impressive to our third-party judges, and we can really shine a spotlight on that. With that comes changes to the judging process. And as we work with Capio, it's a lot for their judges. So again, we saw an increase from 435 entries to 688 entries within 2 years. So their membership has really stepped up to judge. So they let me know this past year that they were going to implement new changes and updates to their awards program that have been announced as they made their call for judges. They're adopting a lead judge recruitment approach where you can sign up to be responsible for recruiting 2 additional judges. So this is really great if you have a large shop, but you're not sure if everyone else is going to sign up, or if you have communicators in other divisions or departments that you want to bring along that might not even be TAMIO members. They are open to that. They've even opened it to, if you, have a somebody out in the private sector, or even a director who's really keen on communications or has a little bit of a communications background but isn't in communications today, they're open to that. And part of that is because they're asking for 3 judges. At this time, it is quite a load to ask Capio to provide us 2 judges. So we're sticking with that this year. And then next year, I will probably be making an ask for them to consider going to 3 judges. But we want to make sure that we really have a lot of guardrails around who exactly that is, because I want to make sure the judges that are judging your work are well-trained and understand strategic communications, right? I don't want it to be in a position where it's, hey, I grabbed Fred from finance because he likes social media. So really trying to maintain that integrity is going to be important as we move forward. Also, as you judge their submissions, just make sure you're really differentiating between an amazing submission, above and beyond, versus one that meets kind of your expectations, right? We had several submissions on the Capio side receive perfect scores from our judges. So just making sure it's not You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings, or you might, but you're going to be anonymous. So just be really honest about where they can improve, because we're going to ask the same of them. Next up, I just want to spend some time on population breaks. This is a question that I get every year, which is essentially, why do the population breaks change across categories? So this has been our stance for several years, that categories with more than 15 entries can be broken into subcategories based on jurisdiction population after the entry deadline and before the judging process begins. This is to make sure that our judging is sustainable, that our partnership with Capio is sustainable. I often hear from the judges that, they thought they might have 5 or 6 to judge, but oh gosh, I didn't realize I was going to have 10. So it is taking up their time, same as us. So it is important that we make this manageable for them. I think 15 entries is plenty. If you've ever judged, that takes quite a bit of time to go through. So here's just an example. I believe this is from last year in our report category. So taking a look at, okay, what did we have submitted? What population did they say they have? And then really trying to, as best as we can, split down the middle, or if it's a three-way tie, sorry. If we have enough to actually split it into three population categories, which is common, we have that option as well. But something that's important to keep in mind here is the more submissions that we get in a category, the more you are competing with cities your size. So if you are submitting into a category that doesn't have as many submissions, so some publication ones, innovation has been like this before. Imagine here that the only towns that submitted were City of Brownwood, Town of Prosper, City of Louisville, and then City of Dallas and City of Austin, right? You've got, if you have Town of Sunnyvale against City of Austin, because we only have 6 entries in that category, that is something that's just difficult. We can't split that, because then you have automatic winners, if you will. So being able to split it down, half and half the best we can. Now, we're always going to have little situations, maybe for, say, like Town of Little Elm here is in that 50 to 75 range, could have gone either way, right? So there are some judgments that have to happen. I am working with Molly, our president, and then she will assign a designee, where I'm going through and I'm, marking these based on what I think we need to do in terms of sustainability for our judges. And then my work will be double checked, just to make sure that we're being as fair as we can be with these population breaks. And I don't know about you, but I am just as scared to go against City of Brownwood as I am City of Austin. Sorry if City of Austin folks are on this call, but equally, we have great work happening in all of these different population breaks. So it's important to understand that as well. Here's another example of just how much we're having to do this and go through this when we get these in. There's no way I'm going to give 20. Okay, I'm getting like sales calls right now, and I should have turned that off. Sorry about that. Having to go through that with our Excel file and make sure we have all of those so that it makes sense for our judges is really important. And then again, sometimes we have those three-way population breaks as well. So the more you enter, and you can just see how much more quote unquote like fair that makes it. Since we had so many in a category, we were able to do a 0 to 50,000 break, which is really awesome. And then 50 to 100,000. So you can just kind of see how those group together. All right, award entry limits. How many can I submit? So it's important to understand you can only place once in any given category. This has not changed from last year. If I submit 2 different entries in a category, only one can win. So even if I get 2nd and 3rd place with the judges, the 3rd place is going to drop off and the next in line is going to take 3rd place. It's just important that we make sure that someone's not able to flood a category. And this has been pretty popular over the years. You are eligible to enter more than one category as long as the work submitted meets the criteria. So an example of this would be for special events. If you had like a new logo or brand for your special event and wanted to turn that in under publications, you can do that while also turning in the special event to a special event category. However, within video, you can't submit across multiple video categories. Special events, you cannot submit a one-time special event as a recurring event. We'll have a little bit more guidance about that sort of thing. And then for social media, your best social post cannot be submitted as part of the best social media campaign. It's, you know, I hear a lot of feedback if somebody kind of feels like a city did outstanding work across multiple mediums for a specific campaign. It can be hard when you get beat out by the same city multiple times. But truly, sometimes we are doing elements or campaigns where it's like you've got the website and that can be submitted for website, but you also had you know, listening sessions, and you want to make sure that that's in our underserved audiences category, which we'll talk about in a bit. But new to 2025 will be a limit of 3 entries in a given category. So as you're taking a look at the category, let's limit it to 3. We did have some folks where it was like the same city had submitted 5 in PSA educational. We had 11 in special one-time program. That just makes it really difficult when we do the population breaks, because if there's 14 submissions in a population break and 11 of those are from the same city, they can only place once, which actually means that the other cities almost win de facto because of that. So it just doesn't quite help us maintain the integrity in the process. So that will be, for most of you, I don't think that'll impact you, but it does still give you the ability, if you want, to submit 2. You know, sometimes my shop will do 2 completely different things, but just the way that Tamio is, they kind of belong in the same category. So it's kind of fun to see, okay, which one are the judges going to like better? Which one, when we have a third party look at it, do they say was more successful? We're also implementing some scoring changes. Essentially what we're doing here is taking the overall impression score. I mentioned this earlier. It used to be 5. We're going to bump that up to 10. Judges will also receive scoring guidance this year to provide more variation in scores. So I just want to mentally prepare everybody for that, that when you get your scores back, they might be a little bit tougher than they have in past years. Some of that is because we were having, you know, half a point dictating if somebody won an award or not. And it's really hard when you get your submission back and you see your judges, if you see the overall rating and you say, well, I got a, you know, essentially a 92 out of 100, or I got a 29 out of 30, and I didn't even place, what's the deal? So we're just going to really encourage our judges to spread out their scores more, but that also means you might do great work and still get a 6 or a 7 out of 10. So don't take that as a C, don't take that as a D. Understand that that probably means that you met it, you met the criteria, your work was acceptable. However, it wasn't above and beyond the best that they saw. We also are implementing a more formal tie-breaking procedure. So in past years, this kind of changed depending on who VP of Awards was. Last year, I tried bringing in 3rd judges for tie breaks, and it just kind of became a logistical nightmare. Although we did end up with, you know, tie breaks being or ties being broken and that sort of thing. But we really felt as a board that we needed to create a very solid procedure and then also communicate that to the membership. So the things that we will be doing this year, we were doing this in practice, but now we're going to make it a procedure, that there will be a maximum of 4 awards per category. So when you're at the TAMI Awards banquet, if there is a tie, there will only be 1 tie in that category in population break. So there might be a tie at 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. But we won't have like 2 in 1st place, 2 in 2nd place, 2 in 3rd place. And so again, that's been held in practice, but we want to make sure, because sometimes we've dipped into maybe 5 awards per category. And so the line has to be drawn somewhere in order for us to create some of these other tie-breaking procedures moving forward. We will have at least 1 winner for each placement, so that we do have at least 3 pieces of hardware going home with folks. And what that also means is displacement is going to be acceptable. So we'll talk about in a second what that looks like. So the way that we're going to do this to make it the most simple logistically is to allow ties at higher placements if possible. So if we have two tied for first place, we will have two first places. And then as we go through the tie-breaking criteria, we'll make sure that there's 1 second and 1 third. And then if there was somebody that maybe was in third and then the second place pushes the third place down, the third place will be displaced. Unfortunately, that does have to happen so that we don't get ourselves in a situation where we have like no second place winner, that sort of thing. The tie-breaking criteria, what that's going to look like is going into the system after the judging happens, seeing where our ties are, and again, starting from the top, if there's a tie in first, taking a look at those overall impression scores. And so that's what we've moved to a 10-point scale now, so that we should have enough variation that we can figure out which entry, just taking a look. One of them has a 10, one of them has a 9. Okay, that one moves down to second, or third place because we're allowing the tie at first place, right? So if then there's a tie at second place, we would make sure that the one with the higher overall impression score stays, and then the next one moves down to third. If those are tied, so say they both got 10 out of 10 overall impression scores, we will then compare the production quality scores. So those are the ones that are criteria specific and then to that category. And then next, if still tied, we will add the scores together for goals and objectives and outcomes and achievements and compare those combined scores. And then if too many scores still remain tied, we'll bring in a third judge to evaluate and add a third score for just overall impression to create a little bit more of that gap to be able to allow the tie break to happen. So here's an example of that. If we have two first places, two second places, both can receive first place. Again, when we have ties, a lot of times they are happening in those second or third place. So this doesn't mean that now we're going to have a bunch of ties in first place, but it still can happen. And then second place, we would go ahead and use our tie-breaking criteria to select 1 second place winner, remaining entry cascades to third place. And then unfortunately, entry E in this example would be displaced due to the remaining entry cascading into third place. All right, let's get into categories. We have a new category this year. This is feedback that I had been hearing from the awards committee, which is we could build out our graphic design aspect of our programming just a little bit more. So this year we're going to dip our toes into new or refreshed logo or visual branding. Generally, if you have a new logo, and visual brand guidelines that go with it, that sort of thing. If you have a new one for your city, a new one for a program, or if you've refreshed one, this is where it belongs. So the criteria for that is going to be, does the logo and visual brand effectively represent the mission, values, and identity while resonating with the audience? Is it creative? Is it functional and versatile? And does it convey the intended message? So very excited for that one. Be on the lookout for that to be added under kind of the graphic design area. And then editing our best use of short form video. In the past, we had this capped at 60 seconds or less. This no longer makes sense because you can go up to 90 seconds. And so just a note on the video categories, under all of the video categories, you can submit vertical. I will say historically, those have been very heavy in the horizontal worlds. So if you submit a vertical video, say PSA educational, you're going to be up against potentially some horizontal long form PSA educational that might receive slightly better judging. I think as a society and as a career, everybody is starting to understand the value of the vertical video more, but we do still want to make sure that we have one category that is specific where those can really shine. So best overall use of vertical video that are 90 seconds or less published on an organization's social media platforms. This is where that can go. You must include at least 3 videos. I know some of you might have 10 videos. That is okay. What we would suggest is probably creating like a PDF where you have those hyperlinks so that you're not going in and, using up all of your URL spaces in the system. But again, it's kind of up to you how you want to do that. And TikToks are okay. If you had a TikTok account these last couple of years, RIP, those can be submitted. But essentially, we know this category is going to be mostly Instagram Reels, right? And then these videos cannot all be part of the same campaign. So if you're submitting your 3 reels that you did for your police department recruiting, those belong under social media campaign. Those do not belong in best overall use of vertical video. So you should be trying to show a variety of the kind of work that you're doing in vertical video for that category. All right, this is going to be a hard one. We had a talk. I started talking with the awards committee and have been talking with the board about this for the last year or two. Best use of humor is one of our most popular categories. So we're going to talk about why I made the suggestion that we retire this category. First of all, I was hearing a lot of judge feedback that most of the videos, I'm sorry, that have been submitted were not funny. So it was actually quite painful for judges to judge because these were huge categories, huge population breaks, and I was often getting the feedback that they were not actually funny. It also creates repetitive video winners. So when you're at the TAMI Awards banquet and you're watching all of the video categories, by the time we hit best use of humor, you've generally already seen this video win in another category, right? So it's creating some of that repetition that we're hearing from our membership that makes the awards banquet a little bit less fun if they're not seeing a lot of variety. So we know the awards banquet is already long. And then beyond that, we have 3 population breaks. So you're actually watching 9 videos plus all over again that you've already seen that maybe already won. I also had a really good conversation with Brian Ligon, who was kind of part of some of these conversations back in the day, where at the time that this category was created, government entities were really struggling with being humorous. That was something that wasn't being employed often as far as being relatable and breaking the mold of what government should be. I think we're in a very different place today. I think when it comes to humor, innovation, those things are almost to a level expected of us, depending on if our leadership is open to that. And not only that, but sometimes what makes something effective is just the pure use of emotion. So it might not be humor, it actually might be sadness or pulling at your heartstrings. So it's starting to feel weird that we are isolating out best use of humor. What that means, though, is that we owe it to you all to continue showcasing when folks submit humorous things to the social media category, to the video category, that we are really showcasing that work to the membership so that you can see all the ways that humor can be used in government. Another edit is we historically are not getting the amount of entries needed in innovation. And innovation is all over the place. There are definitely things being submitted in the innovation category that probably actually belong under marketing plan or campaign, promotional item, that sort of thing. But one thing we're really missing is actually kind of a catch-all for different multimedia. One thing I've heard a lot about is podcasts. Where do I submit my podcast? Where a podcast might not necessarily be innovative, which is probably where I would have told folks to stick that in the past. It's pretty mainstream thing to do, but are you doing it in an innovative way? And that's probably what would help you win the TAMI, if that makes sense. So innovation should be something that's showcased across the board in all of our various categories. So we're going to have multimedia other. And so this is digital media formats such as radio programs, podcasts, or other innovative content designed to inform, educate, or entertain specific audiences. So again, this could be if you have a program for the community that involves digital aspects to it that they can take online, or if you have a podcast, or if you do some kind of audio only. Those are things that don't really fit in other categories and allow us to hopefully recruit a few more different things that we're not already recruiting in terms of submissions. And then another category edit, if you have tuned into the news at all in the last week or the last month, you know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a term that has, almost become where we're not even talking about what it is anymore. It's just, gonna get people hot no matter what. And so we actually have had an issue with this category over the last few years getting enough entries. We had 6 entries in 2024 and 7 entries in 2023. 2023 was the first year that we actually had this category. So we're just not seeing the growth there that we were hoping to see. So with the political climate, but then also trying to figure out how do we get more folks to submit, we actually thought it would make sense to rename this category to underrepresented or underserved audience outreach campaign. So this idea that we all have underserved folks in our communities, whether that's, the elderly or somebody from a minority community or marginalized community, taking a look at your own communications and saying, who are we missing, is an important thing for cities and counties to be doing constantly. And so we're hoping that this new kind of definition of it opens it up for people to get a little bit more creative about what exactly does that mean. And then also reminding folks, because even within DEI, we were seeing folks submit like comprehensive plans that kind of appealed to their entire city. We really want to make sure if you're submitting in this category, you're really pointing out and really talking about who is it that is underserved and what did you do specifically to reach out to them and to meet their needs. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. All super helpful. Did you answer that Teams call that you were getting?
No, I don't. Let me look at it as. Is this real life for you guys? I
It
was like, I
seemed
swear to God, if they keep calling me, it's going to be a problem. Sorry.
We did get one sort of more observation than a question, but I'll read it out here. It says, it seems the judges put more emphasis on the PDF document that is created with supporting material than the actual video or print that is being submitted. I have noticed that agencies winning TAMIs have very polished and glossy PDF supporting document, but the video or print they submitted is not first place material.
Yes. So I think there are 2 wildly different schools of thought on this a little bit. There was a time where within TAMIO at the conferences, we were having whole sessions on how to make your TAMI Awards your submission stand out. I've always kind of stepped back a little bit from that because I think it's a balance, right? I don't think it has to necessarily be either or. This is part of the idea behind overall impression, that you do need to actually look at the submission itself, the entry, the work that was produced, and say, what's my impression of this work? So that was part of going from 5 to 10 there, because I did notice that if you did a really good job polishing out your goals and your outcomes, that it could overshadow the actual work a little bit. But then it's also important that we are doing the work of making sure that we're meeting our goals and objectives. And some of that, the polished PDFs, I think to some degree, when you make a judge's life easier for them to look through your stuff, it does help with their overall, scoring of your submission. So when I go through, again, if you have this specific concern for your entry, maybe from like last year, feel free to reach out to me. Sometimes I'll kind of get this feedback and then I'll actually go in and look, and it's like, well, we do need more than a couple sentences filled out in those fields. But I've seen, a lot of people do really well if they fill out the actual forms in the program very well and concise and not have much of a PDF. And I've seen some folks build out the PDF so much and then add 10 different attachments, and I think it gets the judges lost. So there is a happy medium there.
One of the suggestions that I was going to make is that, there is this balancing act of submitting the work to be considered on its own merit and the art of drafting the award entry itself. And I try to treat the award entry as its own little piece of marketing. I mean, if you think about it, you're trying to sell a judge on why your entry is the best one in that category. We're all marketing and communications people, so take the experience and expertise that you have talking with the community and apply it to the judges. I think to your point, the convenience piece, having judged other competitions in the past, being able to quickly snap to, oh, this is why this is valuable or important, or this is the thing that stands out about it, certainly makes it easier. And with the amount of content that you have to go through, it's important to be able to do that quickly. Question from our very own Richard Yakeley here. Said some sites like IG now allow 3-minute reels. Does that conflict with the 90-second limit on the vertical video?
Richard, you should have brought this up at the board meeting. I think what I'll
Good job,
do,
Richard.
and this was some of the conversation around DEI too, and that category, is that it is such a fluid thing right now that I fear a little bit the ability for things to change midway through our submission process. If DEI suddenly becomes illegal at the city level, that would obviously create problems with our awards programming. So that was some of that. So Richard, I will take a look at that and probably change up a little bit what we have in there, because we did change it from short form video to vertical video. So again, the idea is for it to be a place vertical video can shine. And I think at this point, if you're doing a lot of great 3-minute videos in that realm, that should be included, because we did change it from short form to more of the vertical.
One point from a technical submission standpoint for videos, especially if they're social videos, download a copy, make sure that it's in a static location. I've had that happen last year, actually, where one of my videos, nobody could see it because the URL changed in Facebook. So rookie mistake on my part.
And I will say, folks, back when we were maybe getting 200, 300 submissions, we could be a little bit more hands-on with saying like, hey, Josh, your URL is not working. But what I'm going to say at this point is what we've put on there is like, hey, make sure they work. So unfortunately, we're having to spend enough time going through and even making sure things are in the right categories and things like that. So we quite frankly don't have time to go through 688 submissions and make sure that each of your URLs work in all of your Canva documents and all of your attachments. That would be wild. So just make sure you're going in. The judging usually happens around that kind of like March time, or sorry, late March, early April, definitely April timeframe. So make sure you go through kind of after the submissions are due on the Award Force platform and just kind of check all your links.
And that's another reason I encourage people, highly encourage, take the time that you need to draft and input your award entries, because you never know what's going to happen. And you don't want to wait until the last minute and then be scrambling to try to get a link fixed or something uploaded that's struggling. As we go through the year, we try to be mindful of the content that we're producing and deciding whether or not it should be submitted for an award, so carving it out as we're thinking about it. So we're not trying to go back now and go, oh, what should we submit now? So think about it over the course of the year. Not that you should be drafting or developing content just for the sake of winning awards, but there is a world where they live in both places.
Yeah. And on that note too, as far as creating content for awards and that sort of thing, this is why it's important, at least to me, that we make incremental changes in our categories and whatnot. So we get a lot of feedback every year of like, can we change this? Can we do this? And so I try to make just like a handful of changes every year and not overly overhaul things. just so that if you were creating something through the year and you're like, dang, this would be such a good social media campaign, that I don't necessarily do something where suddenly that's not an option anymore. Sometimes
Yeah.
that will happen and does happen, but I try not to do that on a huge grand scale. So know that I'm
Um,
thinking about next year's categories and what needs to be changed.
Good. As far as the awards themselves, generally speaking, for those who either haven't submitted or have been hesitant to, what value do you see to the organization for having TAMI awards on your shelves?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Just being able to come back to your council, I think, for smaller shops, it is uh and even the way we name the awards, it's like you have a TAMI award, award of excellence, award of honor. When you go back to your city council, don't be like, I won third place. Say, I won an award of honor
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
from TAMIO.
Just
And
stop it. I want an award.
yes. And just what I think council and city leaderships probably don't understand is Tamio is extremely competitive. I get that feedback from our judges all the time that they're just blown away by the quality of work. So when you get that piece of hardware, it is such a big deal. You should be shouting from the rooftops that you got it. I have personally seen so many shops get more resources, more people to help them when they can show like, hey, just as one person, I'm killing it, or just as two people, I'm killing it. So
Yeah.
especially the small shop award. What I love is usually whoever wins the small shop award can't apply for it the following year because they're no longer a small shop.
That's
um,
what I would call success.
yes, yeah. So I love seeing that. And again, that is a huge thing that we've pushed for in the last few years, and I think it's been pretty successful. So yeah. And
Well,
what
and they're dang pretty awards. Like they're very photogenic, you know?
they used to be very, very pointy and very
Yes, I know.
dangerous.
Thank you for fixing that.
Yeah, I think they just stopped producing them. There was probably a lawsuit involved. It's okay.
I think if the award doesn't have the ability to be used as a weapon, is it really an award? I mean,
Yeah. I always love that. Like, when I was in West Texas, I would sometimes have to fly to the conference. And yeah, TSA loved those awards. That was really fun.
so that is another question from me, not from the audience. But if someone submits, but they're unable to attend the conference for whatever reason, what happens to those awards?
Right. So if you win an award, please try to come. We would love to celebrate you and clap for you, of course. But all you need to do is just contact us. Let us know you're not going to make it. You do have to pay for the shipping to you, but Tristan with TML will make sure that happens.
Sorry, choking my. I'm not awkward. You're awkward. Um, Speaking of the conference, we do. Yes, Sarah's right. We want everybody to try to attend. As you know, it's going to be in Fort Worth this year. It is going to be a fantastic time. It is really shaping up to be, and I'm just going to say this every year, the best conference that we've done so far. And who doesn't love Fort Worth? I mean, golly. It will, cowboy hats and cowboy boots and TAMI awards. So, Sarah, we're going to see you in a cowboy hat, cowgirl hat at the TAMIs.
It wasn't in the books, and we didn't discuss a Western, dress code, but we should probably let people know if that's the case.
We should talk about if we should do a Go Western theme for. I don't think Jay would be on board with this, so sorry about it, Jay. But if we did like a little bit of a Western flair to our TAMI awards, I think. Oh yeah, Brian says yes. He says, I think he meant to put yeehaw, but he put yes haw, which I actually like. I'm gonna start using that. Okay, so we might be able to get some traction around
And I'm curious
around.
too. I just want to see if we can get a little chat going. Just what folks think about the changes, and
Yeah.
I love hearing. Again, feel free to shoot me an email. My email and contact information is all over the TAMI Awards pages. So I don't feel like you're bothering me. I love hearing the feedback. As painful as it can be, just like, hey, we missed the mark, or hey, next year maybe consider this. There are so many things we like to consider, and if I hear something multiple times, that's something that's really helpful to me going into the following year.
And to just drive that point home, as you can tell, audience listening, there is a significant amount of effort and care, personal care from Sarah's perspective, and that whole committee, the awards committee, that goes into making this a really, really special thing. And it only gets better with your feedback and input, right? And so the value of those awards comes through cultivation over time. And we have a responsibility to maintain the fidelity and the value of those for the future generations of TAMIO members and leaders. And so, yeah, keep those lines of communications open, and reach out to any of us that have submitted awards, or anybody that in that submission process, and get excited, because this is going to be the best year yet.
Whoop, whoop. I mean,
Um,
yes, ha.
yes, huh? I'm getting the stickers made. Okay, so that's all the questions we have. This conference nope, webinar has been recorded, so we will be getting it uploaded and plastered as far and wide as possible on Tamio properties, so that you can go back and watch it and rewind, reach out to us with questions. And then come back in March. We haven't posted it yet, but we are going to be doing our March webinar on people who didn't start in municipal communications. So I didn't start in municipal communications, but here I am. Help. So we'll be having a fun conversation about those of us that transplanted into municipal communications, and trying to offer some guidance and perspective for the others who follow that path that is not always the cleanest way to go about things. So join us in March for that. Keep an eye out for those dates coming out soon. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone,
Thanks,
for
Sarah.
coming.
Thanks, y'all.